Welcome, everyone, to the Game Disc Podcast, where every week we discuss a specific video game, brand new, retro, or anything in between, and figure out if it's worth putting on our top 100 games of all time. I'm your host, Simon Esty, and today I'm joined by my co-host,
Noah Esty.
And today we're talking about all the news because Microsoft is treating itself to a big purchase while Unity treats itself to cutting off some dead weight. And then, during our weekly game discussion, we decide if Resident Evil VII is one of the top 100 games of all time. Did this return of the original survival horror game to its roots, or was there not enough boulder punching? We will figure all that out. But first, Noah, how are you doing tonight?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not doing too great, actually.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, so, last week, made a little bit of an oopsie on the podcast. I'll go ahead and address that now. While talking about our Bungie story, I accidentally made a mistake and said that Juneteenth, the Juneteenth debacle for Halo was attributed to Bungie, but it actually was attributed to 343 Industries, who, as we all know, is handling the Halo license right now. So, I'd like to get that out of the way, and like many internet heroes before me, I am going to refuse to apologize for it and blame the audience that it was actually okay and their fault.
Yep, I agree. It was definitely their fault, and I'm
Yeah,
sure that I know that you've been getting a lot of hate. People have been showing up outside. People have been showing up outside of your apartment. They've like doxed you.
Yeah.
Your boss actually found out about it and fired you.
Yeah.
He said that we will never have anybody who makes a mistake like that. He said, not in my company.
Yeah.
Your wife took the kids and just left.
Well, no, she left the kids. She just left.
Oh, okay. Well, she took the dog.
Yeah, but the kids no longer talk to me.
Yeah. Well, why would I don't? I'm here just to tell you that this is the last time we'll ever speak.
Yeah. Well, I will say this. I will announce my resignation for the Game Disc podcast. I will.
There is.
Yeah.
No,
so
you don't have to resign.
No, it's okay.
No, I fired you.
Oh, okay. No, never mind. Can I at least stay until we finish the top 100 games of all time list?
Oh, I already did it without you. It's done.
Okay,
it's
cool,
done.
Awesome. All right, well, yeah. So I guess that's the Game Disc podcast. I guess I'll just take my my stick with like my little sack tied to the end of it, and I guess I'll
go start
hitchhiking.
See
you guys around. Yeah, I guess I'll start hitchhiking around Japan and just be like, yeah, that'll be sharing hobo stories, being like, so what happened to you? I was like, well, made a mistake on the Game Disc podcast. Be like, wait, oh, you're that guy? Hey, let me see your sack. And then they just start beating me with my stick.
With the stick, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Throw me out of the bullet train car.
Yep, and honestly, kind of deserved.
Yeah.
Fair.
But what about you, Simon? How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. Work's been kind of crazy, but I always like doing this. So yeah. I'm ready to kind of get into it. It's the weekend and no complaints there. My fiance comes home in a week, so I'm pretty excited about that. So yeah, I think long week, but I'm glad it's over, and it's over. So let's just go right into the news, because there was a pretty big thing that happened this week. Microsoft has finally bought Activision Blizzard King. Yay, they did it.
Good job.
They worked really hard. I'm being facetious. Well, people actually probably did work very hard.
Oh, I'm sure their lawyers worked very hard.
Their lawyers worked very hard, I'm sure.
And I'm sure
go ahead.
I'm sure even just creating the deal probably took a lot of negotiations.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it actually was. I'm sure it actually was pretty involved. But yeah, so it's finally done. We can finally stop hearing about it for now. There's like a weird concession that Xbox made where like Ubisoft will like owns the license for for all like Microsoft Cloud games, which is weird. But it seems like other than that, Overwatch and WoW and Call of Duty and Tony Hawk himself are all now owned by Phil Spencer. He,
Yeah.
he can go down to the pits and give Tony Hawk some scraps and make sure he's fed, but can't. Maybe he'll let him out. I don't know. I hope he does.
No, I've heard Tony Hawk actually just like walked out like years ago. I heard that it was just like yeah, it's one of those things where it was like they had him in this pit, and then like at some point a couple years ago they're like, "Hey, why have we fed Tony Hawk in a while?" They're like, "Oh shit, we should probably do that." And when they ran to go feed him, I was like, "He's not in here." And they like looked through all the security footage of the past year, and they're like, apparently he just kind of walked out and nobody noticed.
Yeah, that's fake news. Tony Hawk doesn't walk anywhere. He
Oh
ollied
yeah,
out.
right, yeah,
He ollied
right,
out, but I don't think so. I think he's still there.
yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, what are your? I mean, are you just glad this is over? Are you? What's kind of your take on this? Or I guess a better question is, what do you hope Microsoft brings back? What Activision Blizzard franchise do you hope we see return?
So first of all, I don't have an Xbox, so
Well,
but
yeah, but they're
yeah,
whatever.
but just
They're
for the
it's
gaming
well,
community.
not only that, but it's I mean, certain things I don't think that they'll make exclusive to Xbox.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Like I mean, I could see something like Call of Duty being like that. Um, to be honest, there's not really any major Activision franchises that I can think of off the top of my head that I'm like, oh, that would be awesome. I think it would be really cool if um maybe like Blizzard, this would never happen, but I think that it would be kind of cool if Blizzard like looked back at some of their like forgotten IPs that only had like one game, like Blackthorn or Lost Vikings, and like kind of do something with that. Maybe just like a re-release or something. I think that might be kind of cool.
Yeah.
Um, I um, I can't really think of any other like big major Activision Blizzard games though that I would be like, oh, that would be great to see a comeback. But what about you?
Yeah, there's actually quite a few. I loved like the whole like music genre when Guitar Hero and Rock Band were big, so I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't mind seeing Guitar Hero come back. I really liked the last one, Guitar Hero Live. I mean, it was kind of weird with the way they did it, but I wouldn't mind just seeing like a Guitar Hero trilogy that's just all of the songs from like 1 through 3 or something. I think that'd be pretty cool. And then the other thing I really, really want, which I think is not likely, is a remaster slash continuation of the Transformers Cybertron games. I would
Mm.
love if we got War for Cybertron and Fall of Cybertron. Those games
Mm-hmm.
are so good, and they're just kind of like gone now.
Yeah.
So they definitely deserve a remaster. Those are easily the best Transformers games ever made. They're just good games in their own rights. So yeah, I hope that whoever Microsoft seems like maybe it's a little bit more willing to work with some of these big companies.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, hopefully they sit down with Hasbro
Yeah.
or whoever owns the video game rights to Transformers and gets that untangled so we can at least get
Yeah.
maybe. I mean, I think a new game is not very likely, but I think a
No.
remaster, I don't think that that's unreasonable. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that if they did do a new game though, it would be like great for Game Pass. Like it's something that I feel like that a new Transformers game like
Oh yeah.
in that vein would be great for Game Pass. Like, hey, here's another Game Pass like game for all the people who are fans of those games, or if you just like Transformers, here you go.
Well,
So,
yeah, and I think that should be like Microsoft's kind of like strategy going forward. I
mhm,
think they should like, yeah, Xbox does have Forza, but Spider
mhm.
Man's gonna be like the big game this month. You know what would have been
No, it's
cool?
not.
Uh,
I'm just kidding. Yeah, no,
yeah,
Spider-Man obviously is
you
going
know
to
what
be
would
the
have been
good
cool
game this month.
if Microsoft added the other Spider-Man 2 to Game Pass, like as a remaster, because
What?
that's an Activision game.
Yeah, what a um Now, I mean, I don't know, like, I'm sure that the deal probably would be a bit more complex, like, they'd have to get Marvel involved and such,
Oh yeah,
but man, how crazy would that be if the day before Spider-Man 2 launches, Microsoft was like, "Hey, we're gonna add, like, Spider-Man 2, the movie, the game on Game Pass."
yeah, but I mean, and I think they could, not they can't
Mhm.
do it this quickly. There's no way
Yeah.
they could get that sorted out in a week.
Mhm.
But I don't know. I don't think that that's like I could see that happening. I could see them
Yeah.
making those deals because yeah, like before we were all playing Insomniac Spider-Man, Activision had that license, and
Mhm.
I don't know if any of those games are as good as Insomniac's two games, but
Mhm.
Spider-Man 2 is really good. I remember really liking Ultimate Spider-Man as a
Yeah.
kid. I think one of the Shattered Dimensions, I think, was
Mhm.
another one that was pretty good.
Yeah, the one with the
Wolverine
4 different
Origins,
Spider-Mans.
like,
Yeah, oh, yeah, I remember that game was, like, really
yeah,
big back before the Arkham games came out.
those are all Activision games, and I think that I mean Microsoft has no problem talking to Disney. They're making um that Indiana Jones game. So, and
Mhm.
Disney's totally fine with letting, all the Star Wars games get remastered. So I don't know why they'd have a problem with Marvel too. So
Yeah.
hopefully that, I hope we see those. The other thing that I think, the other game that I think will be easier that we will actually see is that's a no brainer is a sequel to Tony Hawk's 1+2. Just do Tony Hawk's 3+4.
Yeah,
3 is like most people consider 3, I think, the best one in the series.
mhm, and
Remaster that, sell it on PlayStation, throw it on Game Pass, call it a day.
yeah,
Obviously, it's more complicated than that because of the music. But again, if Activision could figure out 1 and 2, Microsoft can figure out 3 and 4.
yeah, and, it's one of those things too where it's like, is Toys for Bob owned by Activision or no?
Yeah,
Okay, so I could see, obviously this year's been a bad year for, video game developers, but I could see if maybe once, like, after the deal goes through, Microsoft starts making more money again, they could kind of hire people from Toys for Bob to, like, come back and make some more games because, like, you
well, they're all
want
still
some.
there.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah, they just fed them, I think, to the Call of
to the
Duty
Call of Duty
machine.
machine?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay. Well, get them back into making other stuff because, yeah, now that you have to fulfill for Game Pass, and Game Pass was great for, like, those kind of games that they specialized in.
yeah. The strategy, yeah. Activision's
Mhm,
strategy was sell, make a Call of Duty and sell it every year because that will bring in the most money.
mhm,
Microsoft has their strategy. It needs to be more focused on quantity.
yeah,
Obviously, Call of Duty is not going anywhere, but I think that they'll
mhm,
have to find other ways to take advantage of that Activision catalog.
mhm.
Um, the other bit of good news this week, and yes, I consider that buyout going through good because we all knew it was going to happen, and now we can stop hearing about it, whether you were for or against
Glad to
it.
hear you like Monopoly, Simon.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not
How's
even
that
gonna get.
top hat feel?
I'm not even gonna get into that. I think whether you are for it or against it, both are pretty valid.
Yeah.
Um, but the other kind of big news is John Riccitiello is
Mhm,
stepping down from Unity. So, as you are probably aware, Unity decided to blow itself up a couple weeks ago due to a
mhm.
pricing scheme where they would charge 20 cents per download of any game that uses Unity, not sale, download.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and so it was obviously, developers freaked out, rightfully so. A lot of them stopped using Unity for their projects. A lot of them, the developers of Cult of the Lamb actually said they were going to pull their game when this goes into effect January 1st.
Mhm,
Um, Unity did walk it back, but the damage was kind of already done. Developers don't trust Unity anymore. So now the CEO, John Riccitiello, is stepping down. Um, I mean, it's good that he's stepping down. Hopefully, Unity can get some new management. Uh, but it also came out that like a week before he sold a bunch of shares. So there's a part of me that's like, this may have been his intention. Like, sells a bunch of shares, gets a bunch of money, probably like shorted his own stock. Like,
mhm.
who knows? But it's yeah, at least he's gone, and hopefully Unity can start building back that trust because it's just Unity right now is vital to the game industry, and there's no replacement for it. So
Mhm. I think the thing we really need to talk about, because we haven't talked about it enough, is we mentioned it's a bad year for game developers. Man, I think we really need to think about our gaming CEOs a bit more,
oh
though.
yeah.
Um, as we just mentioned, he's leaving. Bobby Kotick is set to leave by the end of 2023. Hideki Kamiya from Platinum Games co-founder, he actually just announced that he's leaving the studio as well.
But
Um,
he's at least a little different
yeah.
because he's
Um,
at least like a developer. John
mhm.
Riccatello and Bobby Kotick, I don't even.
Yeah,
I don't.
they're businessmen.
They
They're
don't have a
business
creative
people.
bone in their body except for how to like fuck over people. They're
But
very creative about that.
he came up with the idea of the Bill Cosby room. That was
Yeah,
funny.
and John Riccatello was able to threaten the livelihood of people who didn't even work for him.
Oh man, that was.
What a
And you say
boss!
they're not creative. And you say they're not creative.
Yeah, it's
Like, hey,
clearly.
how can I like get the people who don't even work for me like
Yeah.
real worried about their future?
Yeah, John Riccatello, shoot for the moon, because even if you miss, you land among the stars. And you did miss, and you landed into the sun.
hmm So,
Um,
um, I mean, yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, in most other like jobs, if you make a huge mistake like that, you get fired. And like you mentioned, this may have just been his like attempt at shorting his stock, which um, I could see that, but I think it's not a bad idea to have him leave after this whole fiasco. It is always kind of like nice to see a CEO after like doing some huge major mistake like this to be gone in some capacity, and hopefully we don't see him again.
oh, I read a joke that the new CEO of Unity is Bobby Kotick, and I'm like, oh no, no. I mean, uh, yeah, that's not
We're just going to like the video game industry. It's just going to be everybody like all the CEOs trying to
it's
screw
just
like
musical chairs.
exactly. And then
Yeah,
it's like in 20 years, like the big news article is Bobby Kodak's returning from Blizzard after his like stint at several other companies.
yeah. Oh
It's
yeah, it's the other one that was in the play was Jim Ryan. So Jim Ryan will go to well, people joked that yeah, like Jim Ryan's going to go to uh Unity
yeah,
too, and
which
then now the joke is Bobby Kotick this week. But
yeah.
yeah, so glad he's gone. I
Mhm.
mean, he's gonna be fine though. Definitely don't
Yeah.
feel bad about him losing his job.
Mhm.
But in response to layoffs, two decent sized companies, game developers, have decided to unionize. CD Projekt Red has announced that they are going to unionize after they've had 3 rounds of layoffs this year. And then
Mhm.
Avalanche Studios, who developed the Just Cause games and I think Hogwarts Legacy, are
Mhm.
also unionizing. Theirs, I don't think, was really in response to layoffs, but last year the company did have to issue an apology when a high level employee was accused of inappropriate workplace conduct.
Mhm.
So I think though, and CD Projekt Red straight up said it was because of the layoffs. Avalanche because of the maybe toxic workplace type of stuff, and then also maybe a little bit preemptive for the layoffs. I don't think they've been hit with it, but they may be looking around and reading the room and saying, well, we might, so let's kind of prepare ourselves now, protect ourselves, because over 6,000 jobs in the industry were lost this year.
Mhm.
I did it. I combined 3 news stories into one.
Good
Um,
job.
so yeah,
You're becoming a
6,000.
pro at this.
Yeah, 6,000 jobs were lost this year. So I think that we're going to see a lot more studios unionize just to protect themselves because when Epic can lay off almost 1,000 people, and CD Projekt Red, who is being pretty successful right now with their
Mhm.
relaunch of Cyberpunk, if they can have 3 rounds of layoffs this year, like I feel like it can kind of nobody's safe.
Mm-mm.
Not to mention kind of the death of live service that we've kind of been
Yeah.
talking about. Well, not death, but
Mhm.
decline of live service.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I mean, kind of what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, like this is a scary year, and Like, I think it's always great. I think it's really interesting how, like, um, hindsight, of course, always being 2020, back when the, like, big story was, like, how prevalent crunch was in the video game industry, Jason Schreier, he broke, like, his article about how, like, oh, like, companies like Rockstar, Naughty Dog, what was the other one? NetherRealms, BioWare was, like, the big one. They all were using crunch, and they were also kind of, like, um threatening like employees by being like, yeah, so if you work overtime and like you stay overtime without pay, you're gonna look really good in front of us, and maybe we'll hire you full time compared to everybody else, and just like did shady tactics like that. Um, which, like I said, hindsight 2020, if would have been great if like the industry kind of like unionized after that a bit more. And then like, yeah, maybe it could help with these layoffs, which obviously I'm not blaming them, but um I do think that would be great if in addition to job security, they would also tackle issues like this as well, like crunch and things like that. That would be awesome if we started improving upon the toxic work environment, because it seems like that is something very prevalent in the games industry right now, unfortunately.
Yeah. And hopefully, I think that the industry is kind of in it's going through some growing pains.
Yeah.
And hopefully, it kind of starts to take itself seriously. And I think it is. And that's why I think you're seeing a lot of, unionization, um, which, I mean, I think it's kind of necessary at this point, just with how a lot of these developers are being treated with crunch and things.
Hmm.
But so now we've got some good news. I'm not going to do a feel good story of the week because both of these are kind of feel good stories.
Oh, okay.
This one's not super feel good, but I think it's interesting and cool. Xbox has passed 500,000 units in Japan. Um, that may not seem like a lot, but that's actually
Hmm.
pretty impressive. This
Hmm.
is mostly due to the Series S, which has actually been selling pretty well due to kind of its small size and smaller size homes in Japan.
Yep.
Um, so it sold 500,000 in the 3 years it's been out. For
Hmm.
comparison, over its total lifespan, the Xbox One sold 227,000, and the 360 sold 1.5 million, 1.61 million. So you
Hmm.
figure it's been about 3 years. It's about a third of the way to the 360. I think it might be able to surpass the 360.
I think it will. I mean, I think that so the 360, which let me kind of organize my thoughts here. So the thing about the 360 that made it sell better than the one was Microsoft really tried to get the Japanese market. They
That's not the only reason the 360
yeah,
sold better than the one.
well, that, and also, but like there was a lot of like random games like
But
Last
you're right.
Remnant,
Last Remnant,
Blue Dragon, Lost Odyssey,
Eternal
and
Sonata,
exactly,
because the
Resonance of Fate,
PS3
I
was
think.
because huh?
Resonance of Fate, the like gun
Oh
one.
yeah, yeah, and Resonance of Fate 2. Those were both on PS3 also though, I think, or one of them was. Um
Oh, okay, maybe. My bad.
yeah, the Japanese developers really had like a hard time jumping to like kind of the HD generation, I guess.
Mhm.
And partly because the PS3 was such just a mess to
Mhm.
develop for. And we saw that with
Yeah.
every game. I mean, that wasn't a Japanese thing. That was, Fallout 3
The
and Skyrim, like totally
the
broken on
the
PS3.
orange box port
Orange
for the
box, yeah.
PS3 is like notorious for being awful.
There's tons of ports that are notorious for being
Mhm.
awful on the PS3,
Mhm.
which is why the 360 did so well, because
Yeah.
you weren't going to buy a PS3 at first.
Mhm.
But you're right. I think Xbox then also tried to kind of get that market, and they did. Blue Dragon was straight up like a Dragon Quest successor, and Last Remnant was a Final Fantasy successor.
Mhm.
And then they kind of let that lapse. I don't think the Xbox One really had any games that appealed to Japanese players. But now it seems like
Yeah.
they're definitely. I think Xbox has realized a lot of people worldwide like Japanese games. So I
Mhm.
mean, their big like launch exclusive was Yakuza,
Mhm.
like a Dragon. That was next gen exclusive on Xbox.
Mhm.
Um,
Which that is a game that was I don't know if the mentality's changed now, but I know a couple years ago the creator of the Yakuza series was like, yeah, we're really surprised that like the game has such a strong foreign like audience. Originally, like we just really made this game fully solely for a Japanese
Yeah.
audience, and then realized that like some foreigners people, and it's like, oh, that's cool. But
Now it's huge.
yeah, so
And and you
oh,
can tell
sorry.
just by the deals they're making that
Hmm.
Xbox is, I mean, Microsoft, they want that. I mean, Persona 3 Reload is going to be day one Game Pass.
Hmm.
Um
I
all of the
mean,
Persona ports were announced at an Xbox show.
well, Microsoft was talking about buying Sega, like even along with like all of like the huge Sega games like Atlas, Sonic and stuff, even something like they would own all the game centers that Sega owns too. Like stuff
Yeah.
like that where it's like I think yeah, Microsoft like I could see them really trying again to go into the Japanese market, but kind of going in a different way. Of course they're not going to buy Sega anytime soon. They spent so much money on this
Oh yeah.
Activision Blizzard deal, but yeah, I could see
I think they're just going to do these kind of like, yeah, like the deals that they're doing with Atlas, and
mhm,
uh I think they're really going to just lean into these deals with Sega, like
yeah.
Yakuza, Atlas. They clearly have that good relationship,
Mhm.
and I would say Sega's well, Capcom too, but even Capcom they've been making deals with because Exoprimal was a Game Pass game. So I think that they're just going to keep
Mhm.
making these deals with Japanese publishers and bolster Game Pass, and
Yeah.
that's great.
I
I mean,
mean,
I
I
have
would
no problem with that.
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they start trying to get From Software, like
Yeah, I could
try
see
to do
that.
something with them because like two very big games Japan recently was like Armored Core and of course Elden Ring. So it's like something like that where putting those games on Game Pass may start like to sway Japanese consumers being like, "Oh, I don't need to buy a ton of games. I can just like,
Yeah. Well,
you
and
know,
the PS3 hasn't been selling like, or the PS3, PS5 hasn't been
yeah.
selling like
I
like
mean, to be fair, the PS3 hasn't either lately.
it hasn't been. In fact, I
No,
don't
that's
know.
just a fact.
That's true. There's been no new PlayStation 3 sold in the year 2023 in Japan. I haven't looked that up, but I think I can confidently say that.
Okay, let me hold on.
Uh,
I'll verify that
Actually,
source.
did you hear the Verge posted an article today? So, do you know what Circana is?
No, who's he?
It's not a he. It's an organization that
Good joke.
publishes
Good
a
joke.
list of it publishes a list of like all sales related to video games,
Yeah, okay.
and the Circana report came out that there was one Wii U sold last month.
Really?
Yeah, which means
Like a new one.
yeah, this isn't like, oh, like a retro game store sold a Wii U. This is like Target or Walmart or something sold a brand new Wii U in the year 2023. So we joke there may have been a PS3 sold in Japan, but anyway, back to the topic.
Yeah,
There's
although I
your
don't.
other feel good story of the week. The Wii
Yeah,
U continues to sell.
yeah. Suricana has
It
announced
was
that the Wii U has sold. There was a Wii U sold, which correct me if I'm wrong. That means that now the Wii U has sold like three times as much as it has previously. Correct?
yeah, yeah, it's double. Well, no, it's just
Yeah.
the console's now the console's getting its second wind. It
Exactly.
was always in for the long haul. But anyway,
Yeah. All.
back to Xbox in Japan.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, the PS5 hasn't been selling particularly well, so it's not hard in Japan. That
Hmm.
the country's kind of moved on to like PCs and Switch.
Yeah.
Not that it's selling bad; it's still selling fine, but it's
Hmm.
not keeping up with the PS3 and the PS4.
No.
So it's not and it makes
Which.
sense. Again, we talked about the small size of Japanese homes. This gigantic white thing takes up a
Hmm.
lot of room, and the Series S is half the size. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't. If there was a generation for Xbox to catch up,
Hmm.
this is kind of their best chance.
Yeah. I think the one thing that Microsoft, if they really want to get a hold into the Japanese market, the one game they
They need
really need,
waifus
uh, uh
besides Master Chief.
yeah, of course. And Arbiter. Arbiter
Oh, of
was
course.
like thing. I mean, I remember that there's that iconic line in Halo 5, I think, where it's like, you tried to kill me. Yes. And now you trying to kill the best of your clan, bitch. It was like, and that was a great line. But the thing that they need, if they really want to tap into the Japanese market, they need to make Dragon Quest available on Xbox. Like,
Yeah.
Dragon Quest is a game that people buy the console for Dragon Quest. I remember back when I used to teach adults, I was talking to a guy and he was like, "Oh yeah, like yeah, Dragon Quest, it's a game I played as a kid." He was like, "Yeah, I buy a PlayStation just to play Dragon Quest." And it's like that's how it is in Japan. People will buy a PlayStation and they won't buy any game besides Dragon Quest. So, I
Yeah,
think if
and if your
oh, yeah.
options are, oh, sorry to kind of interrupt, but
Yeah, no.
yeah, I think you kind of nail it. Like if your
Mhm.
options are $450 for a digital PlayStation 5, that's huge,
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
$350 for this little Series S, and
Mhm.
all you care about is playing Dragon Quest,
Mhm.
like why wouldn't you just go with the cheaper thing? Why
Yeah,
wouldn't you pay
exactly.
$410 for Dragon Quest 12 or instead of 510? And it, or actually no, because the price
Mhm.
of the PlayStation might even be more in Japan. I don't know.
Mhm.
Yeah. So hopefully, yeah, we'll see what happens. But it's at least doing decent, doing better than I think they expected. So hopefully they continue that growth and don't, you know, mess up. Um,
Yeah.
so the actual feel good story of the week is we found out the new voice of Mario and Luigi.
Mhm.
His name is Kevin Afghani. It seems like he doesn't have many credits to his name. The
Mhm.
only one I found was he did a voice of a character named Arnold in Genshin Impact. I haven't
Mhm.
played Genshin Impact, so
No.
I don't know who this character is. I don't know if it's a
Mhm.
minor character or a major one, but that was really his only like major role.
Mhm.
I was confused because I guess he did some kind of fan project for Dragon Ball. It was called like Dragon Ball R&R. And he voiced Raditz, and I was like, "What the heck is this thing?" But it was just like a fan thing. So, but I mean, cool. He sounds like Mario, so I'm guessing they went with him not because of his resume, but just because he sounded like Mario, which is kind of all you want. So,
Yeah,
but it's cool. I'm glad that this kind of guy who really hasn't gotten a whole lot of exposure gets to, have his, you know,
pretty much. Yeah, he is
he gets to
now.
blow up. He's now
Yeah.
Mario.
I mean, in all honesty, unless he gets accused of something really bad or does
Yeah,
something really bad, he could be set for life.
yeah.
Like,
He has
just
very wholesome, large, wholesome shoes to fill with Martinet.
absolutely. Like, Martinet was a guy that he didn't get much recognition until recently, but he just instantly became beloved once he started getting that attention. And it's one of those things where it's like I think that's probably something Nintendo's also like going to keep a very close eye on. Like, hey, like how much of a risk do we think this person could be? How and then also like yeah, making sure that it's like, hey, dude, don't do anything to screw this up because
Yeah.
I don't think Nintendo wants Nintendo honestly, I can't think of like any really big like controversies for Nintendo associated with people. Obviously, there are controversies associated with things like Joy-Con drift and things like that. Um,
Yeah, but I think that's by design. Like I mean,
exactly.
because there's like I could name like five people
Hmm.
kind of associated with Nintendo. Reggie,
Yeah.
Miyamoto,
Hmm.
Onuma.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm
Um,
sure there's more. Sakurai.
yeah, of course.
But those, and I
Doug
guess
Bowser
there's
now.
more. Yeah, Doug Bowser.
Hmm.
I met him. I got to shake his hand.
Oh,
Um,
that's nice.
yeah, I have a picture with Doug Bowser when I went to
Oh.
Nintendo Live. He
Hmm.
was very nice. He asked me if I was having fun and what I liked about it, and I told him it was great, and he was happy. He seems like a nice guy. But
That's
I think
awesome.
yeah, but I think that yeah, Nintendo is very averse to they don't want yeah like
Risk people, people who are
exactly,
potential risks.
and I think that's why want they don't like that the voice of Mario is a big deal because
Hmm.
they don't want a story about how the voice of Mario is a monster. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I'm I hope that we never read that story, and I hope that
Oh god, no, that would be awesome.
you know,
The
I
only
hope
monsters I want to hear about in Mario are the Goombas and the
and the
Koopas
booze
and the bullet bills.
and the booze.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I mean, again, congrats to him.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I'm sure that I just think that's cool. I'm sure
Yeah.
he's really excited, and I hope that Nintendo treats him well because I kind of have a
Yeah.
feeling they may not. But
Really?
that's I don't know.
I mean,
I the more that this has gone on, the more it seemed like maybe they were at the end they kind of screwed over Martinet. So
mm-hmm.
I just hope that I hope that this is like at the beginning of his career and
Mm-hmm.
that he's able to like kind of get some roles and that it's not just like okay, you were Mario in this one game, now bye, we never hear from this guy. I'm sure that
Oh
this is
yeah.
like a dream come true for him. So I hope that he's able to kind of I hope that this works out for him and that
Yeah, I hope
Nintendo
so
treats
as
him well.
well. Um,
Well, that's all the news I got this week.
mhm.
Do you want to take a break, or do you want to just go right into our game of the week discussion about Resident Evil VII
I
Biohazard?
would like to take a break real quick because I really got to go to the bathroom.
Okay, you
Alrighty then.
could have just said yes.
Okay.
All right, so we're gonna take a quick break. If you're listening to this, it won't even matter. It'll be like we never went anywhere. But just know
No.
that we are taking a break. We'll be right
Alright
back.
then. Okay.
All right, and we're back. See, it's like we never even went anywhere. So we're gonna get right into our game of the week discussion about Resident Evil VII Biohazard. So as per usual, Noah, real quick impressions. What do you like? What do you not like? Who would you recommend it to?
I like the atmosphere. Atmosphere was incredible. Gameplay was a bit lacking in some regards, and I would recommend it to anybody that wants like a decent survival horror game.
Yeah, I think that that's fair. I don't necessarily disagree. I really like. I think it does a good job of kind of modernizing Resident Evil.
Mm-hmm.
And it does a good job of kind of taking like the original Resident Evil, and marrying it to like kind of the current crop of survival horror games like Outlast and Amnesia.
Mm-hmm.
As far as what I don't like, certain sections of the game are stronger than others.
Yeah.
Like noticeably. But I think I still would recommend this to most people who are looking for a survival horror game that's more than just running around, but who did who do like kind of those Outlast type of games. So with that being said, we're gonna go into full spoilers now. So if you still haven't played this game and you don't want to know anything about it, you can stop listening now. We'll be back next week. But if you want to know everything we're gonna say, then we start now. So I like this game a lot.
So
go ahead.
Real quick. So before we talk about the game, can we talk about the advertisement and the build up to the game first?
If you have something specific you want to
Yes,
say about that,
the
go
demo.
ahead. Because
Yes, the demo.
oh, the demo. Yeah, the
specifically.
demo was. Yeah, I do remember the demo. Yeah,
I remember I thought the demo was like the greatest way to generate hype for this game because it was Resident Evil, like the last mainline entry was 6. A lot of people didn't like it. And so I thought that was really cool. They're like, hey, we got this teaser. And it was like, okay, that was like just, okay, that was cool. It was a teaser. And then like a month or so later, it was like, hey, there's an update for the teaser, just a heads up. And it's like, okay, it's really not that different, but
yeah, the first teaser, you're right. The first teaser, I was like, okay, this is kind of lame. Nothing really happened, but okay.
Yeah.
And then you're right, they did update it.
Yeah, and there was like, all they did was they put in like a mannequin finger. Like, what's the purpose of this? And I remember, and back then, a lot of people were like, is the next Resident Evil game gonna have combat or not? And then it was like, yeah, like, it was like, okay, like, they added, like, a new room or something, but there's still this mannequin finger that we have no idea for it. And then at one point, it's like, oh, you can now get a gun. And then, like, the last version, there's an enemy that, depending on if you got hit or not, would actually change the game's ending. And so, um, I thought that was a really great way of generating hype, and I thought it
Oh,
fit very
sorry.
well. Oh,
Dog's not happy
puppy.
about something.
No, she was like, I didn't think it was good at all. I don't like Resident
I
Evil.
hate Resident Evil. You take that back.
Yeah, you
Leon
fight
or
dogs
bust.
in that game.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I agree with you.
yeah.
I think because it was cool because people didn't really know what to expect, and
No, not at all.
I think that the demo played on kind of those
Mhm.
fears and anxieties, like,
Mhm.
oh, it's a Resident Evil game, of course it's gonna have combat, and then the
But why
demo
doesn't
didn't, and it's like,
it?
oh, maybe it won't, and then by the end it's like, oh, okay, no, it will.
Mhm.
And it also just kind of, I think, went and showed kind of very early on, it set the tone.
Mhm.
Like, this is not, Escape from Raccoon City or the
No.
mansion or whatever. This is like, it's a more personal game, and it is a more personal game.
Mhm.
You've got the specific enemies, and it was, I think, generally pretty successful
Yeah.
enough to where they did it again for Village. I mean, Village
Mhm.
follows a very similar format where you've got, exactly the enemies ahead of time,
Mhm.
and each one kind of has their own distinct area.
Mhm. And yeah.
But
And
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, and even then, like, a lot of people are like, yeah, this game seems to take a lot of inspiration from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and
Yeah.
then like Village kind of did that similar, but with like classic monsters instead. Like, instead of making one game based around a movie, they made sections based around a type of monster. Which,
Yeah, that's kind of a good point.
yeah,
Whereas this game is, whereas Biohazard is like, yeah, almost like an homage to like slashers.
mhm,
Um, Village is more of an homage to like, yeah,
monster
kind of like
things.
stereotypical monsters, which is
Mhm.
it's interesting.
Yeah,
And we'll try to stick mostly to Biohazard. We won't bring Village in too much, but it is hard to
yeah,
talk about one without talking about the other because they are very
uh-huh,
similar.
exactly.
But I think, like, the problem that I have with 7 is that the opening of that game, that first biome, I guess,
Mhm.
level world section,
Yeah,
is
biome.
so good. The Baker House is so good. The Baker House
Mhm.
is better than any section in 7 or Village.
Yeah,
The
I would agree with that.
like not like
Yeah,
late
I'd agree with that.
Dimitrescu's castle is very good
Yeah,
too.
but
And so
I
is
would say it's
the second area in
the
Village,
factory, the factory or the house.
the house in
Yeah, like the
Village.
okay, yeah, I would agree with that because I feel like the castle was really fun, but it really wasn't that scary. And then the house, I think it was the guest house, but no, I think the guest house is
No,
a
it
village.
was
But
it was just like it was
we'll
just
just
like a
say
mansion.
the ghost person.
Yeah, yeah.
That was really scary, but there was zero combat. So I think
Yeah,
the
the
Baker
Baker
House,
House was a good mix.
yeah.
Um, oh, go ahead. Whatever you're gonna say.
No,
I thought you
no,
were done.
that's what I'd say. So yeah, I
No,
think I would agree with that.
yeah, and again, that's not to say like other sections of, well, I think honestly, I don't think any section in Village is bad. I think there are certain
Sure.
bad sections of 7.
Yeah,
Like
the boat.
the boat's bad.
The
Like,
boat is bad.
and even like the final section of the game, like the boat kind of just derails the rest of the game.
Yeah.
And even like the greenhouse, going from the
Mhm.
Baker House to the greenhouse, I still liked it, but it's such like a drop in quality. And then when you
Yeah.
go do like the sun section, it returns a little bit.
Yeah.
The sun
I
is
like the sun section.
the sun section is good. It's similar
Mhm.
to the house in
Yeah.
Village in that it's less combat focused, more just like straight horror, which I think
Mhm.
works in those games because it breaks it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what to expect. But
Mhm.
the Baker House is just so far and away better than anything else in those games
Mhm.
that, like, even when you've got the section like the Suns that's still
Mhm.
really good, it still just doesn't hold up when you've got like just an average section like the greenhouse and then a bad section like the boat. It makes the whole game just like almost fall apart.
Yeah.
Like
It's
I I could see myself replaying pretty much any Resident Evil game. I don't think I'll ever replay 7. I'll probably play through the Baker House again, but I'll never play through
Mhm.
the game start to finish.
Yeah, um, and I could see that too. I did really like the game for the time, but um,
Yeah, to
I
be
think
clear, I
that
really like the game still, but
mhm. But
looking back on it, it has weaknesses.
and especially like playing in a game, the game does feel a little clunky. I remember one of my friends and I were talking about it, and before Village even came out, he was like, "Oh yeah, like I was playing the game again, and yeah, like it's a little clunky." Which of course, Resident Evil's not really known for its
Oh
smoothness.
yeah,
So
it's like
that's
it's like made by Bungie. It's so
ex-
it feels so good.
yeah, but that's kind of the point of the game. Whereas Village kind of made it feel more smooth, but not like removing all of it. Village kind of feels more like a Resident Evil 4. Like it's smooth, but it's not like it doesn't
It's
take away from
refined,
it. Yeah, that's the best way of saying it. It's refined. And
which makes sense because Ethan, and it kind of makes sense that Biohazard is the official title of Resident Evil 7 Biohazard.
I believe so. It's yeah, Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, Resident Evil 8 Village.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I always just thought it was Resident Evil 7. I thought Biohazard was just like a fun thing that they did.
Probably a bit of both.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense that 7 is like clunkier because
Mhm.
Ethan's just a dude. Like,
Yeah.
whereas in Village, he's still just a dude, but he's a
Mhm.
dude who's now gone toe to toe with like literal monsters. So it makes sense
Mhm.
that he'd actually, and I'm not excusing it. That doesn't make it
Yeah.
any more fun to play, but thematically, it kind of makes sense.
Mhm.
Uh,
Although even then, like I don't think Chris played like I think even Chris was still a little clunky as well.
oh yeah, yeah,
Which
yeah.
yeah,
But I'm just saying, in terms of like Village feeling better
yeah,
but yeah,
yeah.
you're right. It is. I don't think it was intentional
No.
because, like you said, Chris would by that point. Chris actually, Chris legitimately should feel like Call of Duty to play.
Yeah, exactly. Which
The man
I
punches boulders.
I do appreciate that they pretty much the Chris sections are essentially like a first person Resident Evil 4 or 5. Like you would shoot a molded and then you would run up and do a melee attack. And I was like, that's really cool.
Yeah,
The Not a Hero DLC was really cool.
yeah. I did like the Not a Hero DLC.
Mhm.
It was cool, and it was it helped bring, and it was free, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was 2 DLCs. Well, there's several DLC packs, but the 2 big DLCs was Not a Hero and End of Zoe, which End of Zoe you had to pay for, Not a Hero was free.
Yeah, I didn't play Into Zoe, but I did play Not a Hero, and
Mhm.
yeah, I did like that. I did like that. It kind of it strengthened that connection to the Resident Evil franchise because
Mhm.
for most of the game, Biohazard does not feel like a I mean, well, even
No.
the entire game, it never feels like a Resident Evil game.
No.
But then towards the end, you kind of get those connections, and you're like, oh,
Mhm.
this is in the same universe. So kind of getting the DLC and tying it a little bit closer is
Mhm.
appreciated.
Yeah.
And obviously seeing Chris kind of show up at the end, and helping you out,
Mhm.
that all helps. Still doesn't feel like a Resident Evil game, which isn't necessarily a bad thing.
No.
Because what I like, kind of a bit of a tangent, I like that Capcom was like, well, we'll do these, and these sequel games
Mhm.
that are its own thing. They're going to be pretty different. They're going to feel
Mhm.
different. And while we're doing this, we'll remake, 2, 3, and 4 to give you
Mhm.
modern classic Resident Evil. And I think that
Yeah.
that's worked out well, kind of having these two pillars. I personally prefer the kind of classic stuff,
Mhm.
but I still like both.
Yeah. And like even the thing going back to 6, it's like I felt like 6 they kind of went too far because it was like you get a Leon campaign, you get a Chris
Yeah, and
campaign,
they
you get
tried
a
to please
campaign
everyone and didn't please
following
anyone.
Cheryl, and you play as like Albert Wesker's son or something like that. You get an Ada campaign, and it just yeah, like whenever you start getting off the rails like that, it always is a good idea to just take a step back. Okay, you can
Oh yeah,
separate it.
whenever you come out with like this applies to anything. It's smart that they took a step back and
Yeah,
reevaluated the franchise. I'm not to be clear, I think it worked.
Absolutely.
I think
Yeah.
that there's just like some weaknesses inherent. I think that like it almost like if they had just released like the Baker House and like the final campaign and just
hmm
released it as like a $30 kind of standalone thing, I
hmm
think it'd probably be better.
Yeah. Um,
Because the Baker
I
House isn't like it is the
the
longest
Baker
section
House is good.
anyway. Well, and it's the
Yeah,
longest
and
section.
and just even like looking back, like the Baker House has so many iconic moments, um, like the part when he like starts taking like the hammer and destroys the walls. The entire part with the cop car where you try to run over him, and then
Yeah.
it ends in a chainsaw battle.
Yeah, like I
Um,
don't really remember any boss fight from that game except for Jack.
I remember Jack, and I remember the mom had like the little sack thingy, and I believe
Yeah, I
you had
kind
to
of
use the
remember.
flamethrower.
Yeah.
And the final boss, if I remember correctly, it was like a room filled like
I do remember the
yeah,
final boss, but Jack was the best boss. He's also
Jack.
just like uh
Yeah.
the most like kind of terrifying.
Oh well, absolutely. Like there are several times where it was like he should be dead by now, but he's not.
And you don't know
Whereas,
why.
yeah,
Like cuz at that
exactly.
point you are kind of like, oh, he's just like I am just kidnapped by the family from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And then you're
Yeah.
like and then clearly you very quickly learn, no, this is
No.
Resident Evil for a reason.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. Even just like the layout of the house, like
hmm
when you think of Resident Evil 7,
hmm
you think of the house. You don't think of the greenhouse or the swamp or
No.
the boat.
You
You
think
think
of the
of the
house.
Baker house.
Uh-huh.
Um, one
Like
thing. Oh, go ahead. Because
yeah,
I
I
was
was
gonna
thinking
kind of move on.
maybe you'll think of the shack from the demo, but you definitely think
But
of the
even
house.
that's so close to the
I
Baker house.
Yeah,
That just feels like
the
part of the
Breaker House
Baker.
prequel.
Yeah, it really does. That just feels like if you went out in their backyard,
Yeah.
like, um, and even like and I know that we're kind of being a little negative about the game.
Yeah.
But one thing I also think this game does really well is the
hmm
VR mode.
Oh yeah,
Like
yeah,
I
yeah.
think that this is probably like the best like horror VR game. Period.
Uh, I I'm not going to agree or disagree because I've never played any
I
other
haven't gone
horror.
far, and that's why I think it's the best one. Like I played like Until Dawn, Rush of Blood, and that
Well,
was fine.
that was, but I feel like I'm sure there's like Oculus horror games that are like great. So I'm not going to agree or
I
disagree with
don't.
that.
I can. Yeah, and maybe it's just my own thing. I can't see myself. I could see myself probably playing a lot of VR horror games.
hmm
I can't. Like I know I'll never be able to play 7.
Yeah.
Just
That.
it's too freaky. Like it is just like the atmosphere. I played a little bit of it, and even just walking to the house, like, and I know
hmm
nothing's gonna jump out at me. It's just the environment and the like atmosphere is
hmm
just it
They nailed
just
it.
makes your skin crawl.
They nailed it.
Yeah, and
And
I think that that's something to be said.
yeah,
Um, and I
and
like that that's like now their thing. Like now every Resident Evil has a horror game. But I could see
mhm.
myself playing through Village. I think it'd be cool to like run around Lady D's castle.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. The house would be really scary though.
The house would be tough, but that's
Yeah.
like a short section. I could get through it.
Yeah.
I
And
couldn't
I
get through
mean,
the Baker house.
yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, no, it was I remember I did the Not a Hero DLC in VR and I did some of the main game. I never finished it though. I was like, yeah, this game's yeah, and I like I said, I haven't really played many VR games, horror VR games, so I can't say like, oh, it for sure is the best, but I did enjoy it. It is a good VR game.
Yeah. Um, is there anything else you kind of want to talk about with this game?
mm,
I mean, I think Ethan's
the
a cool.
grandma. I kind of
Yeah.
want to talk about the grandma. I remember um, for those of you who don't know, like there's the Baker family, which is there's Jack Baker, who's the dad. And then there's the mom, the son, Zoe, whom like she has the infection, but she's not like it doesn't really affect her too much, so she actually helps you out. Um, and then there's the grandma, and the grandma
How
just
was
like
how was the girlfriend related again?
she worked for like an umbrella like organization, and so she
Mia's
was
her
this
name,
was
right?
yeah, and
Okay.
it was pretty much like um she worked this was the entire boat section. She like worked
Yeah,
for
well,
the
that's why I don't remember it, because that section
yeah,
sucked.
yeah, so she pretty much like worked for an umbrella type of organization, and then like yeah, she was on this boat transporting the mold, who was like this little girl or like the old woman, and then the boat like crashed, it got out, everything started getting infected, and that's when she sends the message to Ethan like, hey, don't come looking for me.
Yeah, that's right.
And
Okay.
then
I remember now.
um and then if I remember correctly, she didn't get to send it. She got infected by the mold along with
The
the boat
mold.
crash by the Baker family, and so that's how she was kind of like in that situation. And then I believe like it got sent to Ethan, and it was like, well, said not to come looking, but this is the like last thing I've heard of my wife in like 4 years, so I'm gonna investigate it. And so that was how she was kind of involved. And then yeah, which I this is something I found funny online. So a lot of people were like, this is something that actually is pretty stupid. Um, there's a part where you get a cure, and I believe like you inject yourself with it, and then you get another one, and you have to choose between Mia or Zoe. And um, if you choose Zoe, you get the bad ending. It's essentially you guys both get on a boat and leave. And if you choose Mia, you get like 2 extra chapters in the game. And on the one hand, people are like, it's like, why would you choose Zoe? Like, from
The whole
a
point of the
character per
game, yeah, yeah,
exactly. And it's one of those things where it's like, it doesn't make any logical sense to choose Zoe, but at the same time, it is like kind of dumb they give you the choice. Like, there's
yeah.
not really a reason for it. Like, if literally the only difference is you just get in a boat and leave, like, it's really not like, no point for it. It makes much more sense
Doesn't
for
make any
Ethan.
story sense. It doesn't make any
Yeah,
character sense. It's not even
yeah,
like a real ending. I mean, you get to avoid the boat section, don't you?
yeah. So maybe in some
Maybe
ways
that's
that is
why.
the
Maybe
good
they
ending.
knew. Maybe they knew.
But you also don't get to meet Chris Redfield.
That's true. So then you don't even know it's a Resident Evil game.
Yeah, exactly. And no mentions of Umbrella. It's just, yep, you dip, leave, and
Yeah.
that's it. Um, and you don't get to play the Not a Hero DLC. Or, I mean, yeah, the Not a
Well,
Hero
you still
DLC is like an
could, couldn't
alternate
you?
reality. Yeah, you can.
Yeah, it's just
Um,
like it's an alternate reality. Chris was
yeah.
just where Chris just doing his own thing as
hmm
usual.
Yeah, the saving Zoe is actually the canon in the game.
Yeah,
Resident Evil 8 is not canon.
it's not. It's all fan made.
Um, yeah, so there's that, and it's like I don't get why people would choose Zoe, but at the same time, it is kind of pointless
Yeah,
that
it's
they
just dumb.
included
I mean,
that.
I feel like that's just a thing in games now. It's like, well, we've got to give choice. It's like,
Yeah,
no, you don't. Some games
as
can just be a
E40
linear story, and that's
as
okay.
E40 once said, everybody's got choices.
Everybody does got choices, but sometimes we don't need to make them. Sometimes
No, not no. Oftentimes, it's unnecessary, and yeah. So that was a thing. Um,
then you want to talk about the grandma too.
yeah. So the grandma. I didn't realize the grandma was alive at first. I thought she was just like dead
Yeah, I think that's kind
and
of by
design.
yeah.
Yeah, and then you actually messaged me and like said she was alive. I was like, God damn it, like I didn't know that. Like, thanks for the spoiler. But then like every time I passed the grandma and I realized she was alive, I was like, oh, I don't like this.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, it's
it's just
almost
like
like worse if you know
yeah,
she's
it
alive.
is much worse because she's just sitting there doing nothing, and it's like, whereas in the past, be like, oh yeah, it's just a
It's just a
corpse.
corpse. It's not going to go
But it's
anywhere.
now
But
it's like,
no,
what? I don't like this now. Like, ugh. So
yeah,
yeah, so that was the thing, and I was like, that was really cool.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, and so
And that's I think that kind of like the game has just so many good ideas, but then
mhm.
it just gets bogged down with the ideas that aren't as good.
Yeah, exactly. Um, and so yeah, and I feel like that's one of those things. Even though Village is a more refined experience, I think that maybe they had a lot of really good ideas in 7, and they just kind of like maybe put it out a bit too early.
I don't
Like
even think it's. Yeah, I think it's.
I think
I don't know if they
so.
necessarily put it out too early because it's
No,
like
I don't
it's
mean it like that. I mean it like um maybe what I mean to say is I'm curious how this would have come out if they did Village first and then Biohazard, if that makes sense.
like if they did like the movie monster game first and
Yeah,
then the slasher
exactly.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I think it would have been cool because uh like in Village we get like the vampire and the swamp monster and the
hmm
metal monster, I guess, and kind of
Well,
like
we got like so it was supposed to be like vampires, swamp monsters, ghosts, and then like Frankenstein type of
okay, that
thing.
makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
I wish that like they would have done that,
hmm
for
Shame we didn't get a
Biohazard.
Mummy DLC.
I don't know. Yeah, that would have been actually cool. Um, it
Yeah.
would have been cool if we got, if the Baker House was Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and then
hmm
you are in like a suburban area, and then that's when you get like the
Oh God,
like
that would have
you
been
get like the
so cool.
Halloween like one, and then you
Next would be
know
the lake, which
y-
is
yeah, like
yeah,
Friday the
obviously for
13th, and then like like a
last
section
section.
and like
Well,
Freddy
that would be
Krueger type of thing.
yeah,
Like it would have
exactly
been
like the
cool if
last section because it's like okay, the game's not going to be scary. We can go balls to the walls now. Would be like a Dream Nightmare on Elm Street section. That would be
yeah, or
awesome.
even yeah, I think that would have been cool is instead of just like, and they kind of do that with like Saw, like the sun
Yeah.
section is kind of Saw like, and I think
Uh
that
huh.
that's why that section works, but it's
hmm
like the greenhouse section isn't really pulling from anything. The boat sure as hell isn't.
Now the
Like I
boat was
think it would have
just.
been cool if they wanted to do a game inspired by slashers, they should have
hmm
done a game inspired by slashers,
Yeah,
and
I
they didn't really.
agree. And I highly agree. Um, I will say this though, to be fair, that is a very American perspective that we have of being like, oh, that'd be cool if everything was inspired by slashers, because slashers are much bigger horror like genre in America than in Japan. Um,
But
but
I don't think that that's unreasonable because the first section is clearly inspired by Chainsaw Massacre, which
yeah,
is very American.
yeah,
Texas.
exactly. Yeah, the game's it's called Texas.
It's
Yeah, even every Resident
not
Evil game takes place in
Tokyo
America.
Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh man, that sounds like it would be a drastically different like style of film. It would be like a grindhouse type of
Yeah, that'd be
film
like a
instead of
black
like a
comedy
slasher.
almost.
It's like a Tokyo Gore Police.
Yeah,
Um
exactly.
so yeah, that's yeah, I do agree. And I think there's actually like a game that's made by like it's a new game that's being made by like Suda51 and
Sweary.
Uh, yeah, that game, which that actually is kind of like slasher inspired as well. So like, so I guess it's one of those things where it's like, huh, like, yeah, you can make games based upon them, but yeah, that would have been really cool if, yeah, they did kind of do it. I do think having a Halloween section, like a more suburban section, would have been very difficult because like
Yeah.
you could, because going from like a the Baker house to like an abandoned campground, that could make sense. But yeah, I do think as cool as the suburban area would be, um, that would have been very difficult to put in. Um,
Yeah.
which yeah, but which that now that I think about it, not really many horror like games or anything take place in like a suburban city. Like,
Alan Wake
or
does. Not
uh,
suburban. Not suburban. That's gonna be Alan Wake
now
2. Well, Alan Wake 2,
Alan Wake 2 is gonna be a suburban city,
not
like a
suburban, just a
suburban area.
city. Just
Oh,
a
okay.
city.
Yeah, because there's a lot of like stories that take place in city, like Resident Evil 2 and 3, for example.
Yeah, I guess you're
Um,
right. Cities,
but
suburban areas aren't very common. You know what? State of Decay kind of does.
oh, I didn't know that.
A little bit. I
Um,
mean, there's a suburban area. It's cool.
Oh, yeah, I think that'd be cool to play like horror game set in a suburban area. That'd be really interesting, I think. But
No, I agree with you.
regardless, getting off topic.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm okay with wrapping it up unless there was something else you wanted to talk about.
mm, I guess we'll talk briefly about the found footage DLC, which I think that was also kind of cool. And going back to like the Saw inspiration, it was pretty much essentially like um
I don't know if
there's
I
like this
played this.
you didn't.
Okay,
I didn't
so
even.
oh well,
Well, because the idea is kind of interesting. Like they're kind of like little mini side stories and kind of um yeah, kind of focused once again on like the Saw aspect, which
oh,
is a
I
cool
did
little
play this. No,
idea.
I think I did play this. I did play this.
Well, there
I,
was
or was
sections
this a
in the
section in the
game.
game that was the
There
same?
were sections
Yeah.
in the
Okay.
game
Never mind.
like
No, I
that, like
didn't.
2 or 3, and then they also did DLC that was similar
Oh,
to it as
okay. I'd
well.
rather talk about the sections in the game because those aren't in the
Okay, yep,
game, and then it's
that's
the
fair.
same
That's
thing.
fair.
Those sections are cool. Finding a tape and like it was. I mean, yeah. You talk about how it would have been difficult doing a suburban
Mhm,
area. Could have just been a
mhm.
really long tape where he just found a tape and it's a suburban area. And
That's true. That's a good point.
but the cool thing about the tapes is yeah, it was other it was basically just like other sections of the game or other time,
Mhm,
and so it kind of like things were the same, like you, because it's a Resident Evil game, you're running around in
mhm.
the area,
Yeah.
and kind of exploring it, and you're getting a little bit more comfortable with it.
Mhm,
And the found footage sections kind of turned those on its head because you knew these areas, but they were just slightly different, and so you didn't know what was going to happen because you know the aftermath, but you don't
mhm,
know what's coming. So it kind of like those sections I think are pretty creepy too.
mhm.
Those sections are really good, especially again the Baker House ones where you're kind of exploring the house and you know that there's like these things in there,
Yeah.
but you don't know what.
Well,
Go ahead.
Well, it was also really cool how they kind of tied some of the found footage to the demo and like the demo
Exactly.
to the
Yeah.
main game. Um, like that was the thing. The first found footage you find is the like one where it's the TV show, and yeah, you learn about your guy's named Clancy, and then you investigate the house, and then at one point it's like, hey, where's like that one guy? And then you find him like down in the basement, and then like the demo section chronologically, like the demo section took place after that, and in the main game, like if you're supposed to get the good ending in the demo, in the main game you actually find like a newspaper article that's like Clancy, who's the cameraman, he like or maybe this was at the end of the demo, but it was something like they went to the like house and found no evidence of people living there. um And so it was really cool how like they tied it up, and then in the main game you found like a brochure for um like the TV show, and that was really cool how like they tied all that together.
Yeah. No, I agree. I did like
Mhm,
that, how it was kind of giving you a little bit more world building in this very small
mhm.
section of this larger like Resident Evil world.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I've got nothing else to say about the game.
Nope. I agree. I think that's a good time
Uh,
to wrap it up.
okay, so in your opinion, does this make the list?
Nope.
Yep, I'm kind of in agreement. Again, not to say it's bad. If this were like a
No.
top 150, I think it'd probably make it. But for me, I don't even know if this is in like my top 5 Resident Evils, and I don't know
Nah.
if all 5 of those would make it on the list. And like we kind
Yeah.
of alluded to, Village is the better game. Village has a better
Uh-huh.
shot at getting on this list.
Yeah. Um. I don't know if Village will get on the
I
list,
don't either.
but
but the fact that I don't know if Village will get on the list and
it's
that's a
yeah.
better game means that I don't think Biohazard has a
Well.
shot.
Well, I
It
think
doesn't have a
also.
ghost of a chance.
Well, I think also it's kind of funny how like last week we talked about Luigi's Mansion, and prior to it, we both were like, "Yeah, this game's not getting on the list." But over time, we talked about it. We were like, "Huh?"
We
Like,
came to the realization that it needed to be on the list.
yeah. Whereas this was like, it's very similar. Like, I was like, "Oh, um, yeah, it's not going to be on like the list," and just talking about like the problems, I completely forgot about like the boat section until you mentioned like there were some sections weaker than others. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about the boat.
Yeah.
Um and yeah, so yeah, that's one of those things where I was like, yeah, we talked about it and kind of once again like reiterated, yeah, not really going to be on the list. Whereas, yeah, so yeah, not on the list.
Sorry, Resident Evil
Nope.
7 Biohazard, you did not make it, but I'm sure that there will be at least a couple Resident Evil games on this list.
Yeah, there's got to be at least one,
Yes.
maybe two.
I think there will be. Yeah, I think there will be a couple.
I think there's going to be 12.
There's going to be 12 of them.
Yeah, there's going to be Resident Evil 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 0, Operation Raccoon City, Revelations, Dead Aim, and Outbreak 2.
You forgot the movie.
Oh yeah, Resident Evil Degeneration or whatever it was called.
No, I'm talking about like the Mila Jovovich Resident Evil movie.
Oh well, the funny thing is, the Damnation or whatever the first animated movie was, there actually was like a mobile game for it. So yeah, that's gonna be on the list.
You also forgot Deadly Silence.
Well, that's just a remake of 1.
Nah, but it's got that sweet DS.
Yeah,
that's my favorite video game naming convention ever. All the DS games.
That was Castlevania: Dawn of Sorrow.
That was Ninja Gaiden Dragon Sword.
Yeah, it was Advance Wars Dual Strike.
Yeah,
that was such a fun naming convention.
It was so good.
Oh man.
Anyway, no, what have you been playing?
I've been playing the Modern Warfare 3 beta whenever I can. Yeah. Every week I've been playing Baldur's Gate. I'm kind of at a difficult part and the game's not pulling me like it used to, so taking a little bit of a break and yeah, I downloaded the Modern Warfare 3 beta and I'm having a blast with it actually. Call of Duty's a game that like I'll ignore it for a couple of years, play it again randomly, and I'll be like, hey, this game, I forgot how fun this game is.
That's kind of how I interact with Call of Duty too. I actually have been meaning to kind of try out the beta, so thanks for reminding me. I might have to get on that. And
I will say this. So, I primarily use like the handgun, which that's my main weapon, and it's a little disappointing. There's no just semi-automatic handgun. There's like an SMG. There's like a Uzi, and then like a 3-round burst one. And in order for me to get a sight for the 3-round burst one, I have to level up a different gun to level 12. And I get why they do it, and I can appreciate that. Like, it's like, hey, try out other weapons, see what you like. But I just want to use my handguns. Like,
no, I can see how that's kind of frustrating.
Yeah. And I will say that another thing I think would really cool, so they got rid of the knife in the game, which, okay, I get it. A lot of people didn't like the knife, so now you have to like melee people twice to kill them. I think you should at least still. I think a couple of Call of Duties have actually done it. I think that would be cool if you could still get a knife attachment for the handgun, because I remember that was the thing. You could have like the knife in one hand and the gun in the other, just quick knife. I think they should at least bring that back. And I'm not just saying that because I like using the handgun. I'm saying that because I like using the handguns and I like using the knives.
Yeah, I think that makes more sense too. Yeah, that's weird because knifing was always the thing.
And it just looked cool too.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're at least liking it. Like I said, I've been meaning to get on it and check it out. And now that Xbox, or now that Call of Duty is owned by Microsoft, hopefully they just add that to the Call of Duties to Game Pass, and I can just play them that way, which would be pretty cool.
Yeah, well, something I heard rumored that one of my coworkers was talking about, but I was like, I don't think that's true. But after thinking about it, it's like maybe the next Call of Duty game will be like Black Ops something, like Black Ops 2025 or something.
Yeah, whatever. 4 or 5.
Yeah, and it's pretty much that's going to be like the definitive Call of Duty, and then they'll just update it. And I was like, with the Microsoft buyout, like maybe that's what they're doing, but
it makes more sense.
Yeah,
I mean, they barely got 3 out this year. I mean, there were reports at the beginning of the year that 3 wasn't going to make it. That's why I'm pretty sure 3 is just made up. The new game is made up of just old maps because they just did not have people to design maps. But who knows?
I mean, taking good maps, it's not a bad idea.
I mean, it's not a I mean, and if it works, Microsoft may just say, "See, we can just build this as a platform. Live service games.
Yep.
If a live service game works, it works." And Call of Duty is one that can definitely pull its weight up there.
Yep. Well, it has been with Warzone.
Yeah. No, you're not wrong.
Yeah. Anyway, though, but what about you, Simon? What have you been playing?
So last week I flew to Seattle and I flew
Yep.
standby. So I got to the airport pretty early, and as I was waiting for my flight, I got to the final boss in Xenoblade Chronicles 3. And then as I sat down on the plane, I started the boss, and then I
Mhm.
beat him a couple of minutes before we landed.
Oh my lord! How
So
long was that flight?
like an hour and 45 minutes.
Jeez!
The final boss in Xenoblade, between the cutscenes and I didn't beat him. I rolled credits. So that's how long
Oh,
everything in
okay.
that game took. It took about an hour and 45 minutes from the entering the room with the final boss to rolling the credits.
Yeah,
Which is still just wild.
a long time. I
Um,
remember, yeah, like, I once saw the ending and such online. I was like, oh, this seems pretty long, but that's so wild.
Yeah,
I,
but I liked the game. It was good. It went on too long. The Xenoblade, this one in particular, I'm sure the other ones have the same issue, where it's just like the cutscenes go on longer than they have to.
hmm
Like you get the point of what they're doing, and then they go on for another like 3 minutes, and it's like, come
hmm
on. But I mean, I like the game. All the characters are really good. Um, but yeah, so I wrapped that up on
At least
Saturday, and
unlike
then
some other games, they know how to name a main character.
that is true. Um, but yeah, so I wrapped that up, and since then on my Switch, I've been playing. I went back to my Pixel remasters, so I'm on Final Fantasy V, which I'm enjoying. I don't like it as much as 4,
hmm
but I also really liked 4.
Yeah.
I'm excited to kind of get through it, and then I can get started on 6, and then haven't really played any Street Fighter, but I've been playing the Overwatch Halloween stuff.
hmm
And I'm having a lot of fun with that. They've added like a Diablo mode, which is it's kind of fun.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. So it's like as you can pick like one of like 6 characters, and as you beat like the bosses in the mode, you can get like perks for your abilities, and then you can also get like upgrades and things. It's just like kind of their fun Halloween mode.
It
So
might
I've
be
been enjoying it, and
the
I've been
remnants of the single player that they canceled.
yeah, well, no, that they charge for.
Oh.
Yeah, my fiance did buy it, and she was actually like she liked it, like,
hmm
and of course it ends on a cliffhanger. Like it
hmm
ends with like Widowmaker about to like assassinate somebody or
Oh
something.
god.
And she's like, and she thought it was coming out like the week after, so she's like, yeah, I can't wait till next week. And I was like, oh no, you'll have to wait till next season. Maybe,
Oh.
because I actually know that you have to wait longer because this is the new season and it's not there. So
Oh
yeah, that
jeez.
game is it's fun. Like it's like I have fun when I'm playing it. When I have like a
hmm
group, I have a group I play with.
Yeah.
And it's fun when I play with them. But if I were to play it by myself, it'd be miserable. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I
and
mean,
then
I feel like that's just Blizzard games. It's like it's fun, but it could have been more fun.
yeah, you're not wrong. But then yeah, this week we've got Spider-Man. Oh, actually, I I played one other game that I'll talk about briefly. So
What is it?
I started kind of doing like some writing stuff,
hmm
and the site I work for, I'm not going to say what it is just because I haven't really started yet.
Okay.
But one of the guys was doing a review, and he needed to try out the multiplayer, so they gave me a code for this game so I could try it out, and
hmm
it's called Wildcard Football. And it's kind of like I'm not a football guy. It's kind of cool. It's kind of fun. It's
Mhm.
basically just like a football game, but you have perks. Like
Oh.
so every like turn you get like 5 random cards, and you have like a meter that you could choose like what like and you can only use so many perks, but they do like some of them are just like your guys run twice as fast, your guys do like
Yeah.
this, but some of them just do like wild things. Like one of them straight up just placed bumpers near the end zone, so if the like opposing team gets close, they'd have to like run around these bumpers. But yeah, so I played that. I didn't play it for very long just because I don't like football games, but I was like, oh,
Yeah.
this is kind of this
Yeah,
is kind of cool.
well, it's
I
kind
like
of
the premise of it.
yeah, well, it's kind of like for a long time people have been like, man, we need some more arcadey sports games
Yeah,
back,
it's
and so it's cool that
100% in that vein.
that's awesome. That's cool.
Yeah, so check out Wildcard Football if you're tired of boring old Madden.
Yeah. Yes.
Um, but yeah, so that's it. All right, so that we're about wrapping up. Is there anything you want to plug before we get out of here?
Um, yeah, so I mean, I guess I'll plug like the package box in my apartment. It was kind of a little bit of a hassle at first, but now like I got it and it's actually really cool because it's like I don't need to worry about a delivery, like being home for a delivery, don't gotta go to like a store for an Amazon locker. All it is I just go downstairs, plug in the number, like my little code thing, and then all my Amazon packages are in there. So yeah, that's really nice and convenient.
Good. I am glad. um well, I have some stuff to plug. Um Thank you to Pecan Pie on Upbeat for our intro and outro songs. If you did like this podcast, please give us a rating and review and follow us so that more people can check us out and find us. If you didn't like us, maybe let us know why and we can try to make it better. You can find other episodes of this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Google Podcast. And you can find me on Twitch at Smesty. My hope is that I'm going to stream us two plus Zach from episode 2, and then another friend of mine playing Dead by Daylight tomorrow, which would be Saturday. And then we will talk about that as our weekly game next week. So that's the tentative plan. I hope that that's what we're able to do. But I will see you guys all next week, and I hope you enjoyed. Bye.
Bye.